There we go. Good morning. I'm Aisling Zaccarelli. I know most of you who have joined this morning. I'm the career advisor for science and health, and so thank you for joining to kind of benefit from the alumni advice that we've put together this morning. So with that, Jordan Polster is graduated here not too long ago and has reached out to put this program together for you all, thinking that it would have helped her probably in the process when she went through it. And so this is the genesis of the meeting. If we could all just kind of quickly, the speakers could quickly introduce ourselves, and then Jordan, I'll let you take it from there.
Hi, everyone. We're super excited to be here to talk with you. So as Aisling said, I'm Jordan. I graduated from Davidson in 2023. And we have here with us Cam, Mia, and Alexis. We all graduated in 2023 and went straight into PhD programs. So I'm a second year microbiology PhD student at Yale, and we're all going to share our experience, like 5 to 10 minutes of kind of what the process was like for us applying to grad school straight from undergrad and what we've learned like since that process. But if we can first, Cam, Mia, and Alexis, just like say your names. I'm saying that order because that's the order on my screen, and what program you're in now.
Hey, hi everybody. I'm Cameron, and I'm a second year at the biosciences program at Rockefeller University in New York. And yeah, I'll share more about my process later.
Hi everyone, I'm Mia. I'm a second year in the biosciences PhD program at Stanford, specifically in the Department of Molecular and Cellular Physiology.
Everyone, I'm Alexis. I'm a second year at Montana State University in the microbiology program with like more of an environmental microbiology focus.
So maybe in like kind of that order again, we'll talk about our experience. We might have all hopefully some different things to say. So it's not going to like follow the same pattern for each of us. And then after we go through talking about what we have to talk about, we can open it up to Q&A, and like we can kind of just like add in things if something that somebody else said like made us remember, oh yeah, I wanted to say that, like add that back in. We're also going to, before we start, have Ridgely Chapman introduce herself, and she'll be speaking at the end.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Ridgely Chapman. I have a PhD in clinical psychology from the University College London. I am currently back living in the United States and doing an internship at the Davidson College Counseling Center. So I'm looking forward to talking with you all.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and talk about like my application experience, like selecting a program, how I thought through all of that, and then what I kind of learned and wish I had known going into my first year. So I applied when I was a senior at Davidson. I only applied to 6 different programs, which is definitely on the lower number of programs to apply to. But my outlook was that I really only wanted to apply to programs where I could see myself being for 5 to 6 years, because it is such like a big decision. And I thought it's definitely possible I won't get into any of those. And if that happens, then I could just take a post-bac or be a lab tech for a couple of years. Thankfully, I did get into a few different programs. But the ones that I applied to were mostly umbrella programs that would allow me to focus in a specific area. So I think, as like y'all probably heard last week and maybe have known before, there's several different types of PhD programs. In the biosciences, it's common to have umbrella programs for like every type of biological research thing you could imagine. But you can also have very like specific programs, like immunology specific, virology specific, cancer biospecific, things like that. So the program that I ended up joining was Yale's Biological and Biomedical Sciences umbrella program within the microbiology track, which was a really good fit for me because I knew I wanted to focus on infectious disease research, but I didn't know what type of infectious disease research I wanted to do. I didn't know if I was interested in virology or bacteriology or more immunology stuff. So I like only applied to programs that had a good number of labs in like many different areas that I was interested in. So, and then thinking about like what you're putting in your applications. This is also some stuff that you maybe have heard like before, but it's really important when to do some research into the schools that you're applying to, which is, you know, how you decide which schools you're applying to anyway. But I think that the admissions committees really want to see you tailor your application to their schools to show you're actually interested, like doing research on the faculty members that you could be interested in working with, describing like why your research ties in to their research, or like why you want to change directions in your research and veer more towards like what faculty at that institution are doing. And there's also at different institutions lots of extracurricular and science outreach, like science related extracurricular things that you can participate in as a grad student. And so certain programs really do value people being involved in student life as well. Then after you submit your applications on the lovely December 1st deadline, or before for some programs, then you'll get interviews, and the interviews, it kind of can sometimes seem like a repeat of what was already in your like written applications. And interview experiences can vary widely depending on the interviewer, but you cannot expect the interviewers to be very familiar with your application. Some will know everything about your application and have specific questions for you, and that's fantastic. Others will have glanced at your application a couple weeks before. So this is really testing whether you're able to speak about your science, because anybody can have like a mentor help them write their application, but not everybody is able to talk about their science. But also, I think it's great to remember in interviews that yes, it's really stressful, but it's also an incredible opportunity to get to talk with some really amazing scientists. Like thinking back on, like there was one like interview that I had in an institution that I did not go to, but this interview that I had completely reshaped the way that I thought about vector-borne diseases. And that has been very fundamental in like influencing my research interests now. So they're really great opportunities to try to enjoy the most that you possibly can. And one other thing that I think is really important is making sure you have questions prepared for the faculty who are interviewing you. Because occasionally, this is not, hopefully not frequently, but you might have a situation where halfway through the interview, they turn it over to you and they're like, what do you want to talk about? So if that happens, then it's good to have questions about their research. Every faculty member loves to talk about themselves and talk about their research. Like no, people are going to tell you that over and over and over again, and it's true. So reading a few papers, reading a few abstracts is a great idea to be able to ask some questions about their research. They don't expect you to be an expert on them, just to be able to open up a conversation. You can also ask about like questions about the program or about the institution. If you choose to ask those types of questions, then make sure that your questions are not something that you can easily find on the website, because they want to make sure that like you're actually interested in the program and that you've done some of your research beforehand. But you could ask things like, what's your experience with collaboration here? Like, for example. Then the next step is getting in or not getting in. And this is the worst step, but it's important to prepare yourself for rejection and to try to not take it personally, which it's harder than, you know, anybody would like it to be. But something that really helped me when I was like facing rejection from like specifically one program that I had really set my heart on, Dr. DTS told me that you want to go somewhere that will give you the support that you deserve for your entire PhD. And like you are all amazing scientists, and going even just having the courage to submit your application, like that's a lot. And you deserve to go somewhere that wants you. And I think that that's really important to keep in mind, like as you're starting to apply. And then seeing from the other side, like I still thought, oh, that sounds great, but like if I didn't get in, they didn't want me because I'm not good enough. That's actually not always true. Like in the past year, I've seen like the faculty selection process for new faculty members at Yale. And I've also heard more about the admissions process. I've talked with different faculty involved on the admissions committee, and I'm actually helping to like advise the recruitment for my program next year. So I've gotten to talk to like the directors of graduate admissions, and it is not all based off of did you make the cut or did you not? There's so many different things that each program is looking for each year. It depends on who is reading applications. That can vary year to year. That varies program to program. Some are looking for a certain number of people with a certain type of research interest because they know that they have certain labs that are open looking for students that year. Others are looking for specific experiences. Sometimes people on the admissions committee want to have people who have had more work experience before. Others love people coming straight from undergrad. Others really prioritize science outreach. Some don't care about that at all. Some are looking for how your interactions are with like the host students, and they take like that into consideration, like how you seemed, whether you fit the vibe kind of during the interview. So there's so many things that are going on. So I feel like looking in hindsight, knowing all of that has allowed me to not take it as personally, because there's a lot more going on than like you think. That's just about like your science and whether you're good enough. Then for choosing a program, yes, it's important to make sure that like there's enough labs that you're interested in there, and that you like the type of research. Like if you're super into basic research, don't go to a translational program that like only has translational stuff, or vice versa. If you want to do translational stuff, don't go to a program that only offers you basic science. But what I think is really, really important is thinking about the type of grad school experience that you want, because you're going to have great research everywhere, but you're choosing a place to spend your 20s. You want to make sure that you like the cohort that you're going to be with. You want to make sure that you like the community there, that if having extracurriculars is important to you, that you're able to do those things. Like for me, I have so much more full of a social life and like extracurricular life than I ever did at Davidson, which is crazy for me. But like it is possible to have an actual life outside of just doing your research. So think about that when you're looking at your programs. And then some things that I would have liked to know going into my first year. It's very important and very good to be open-minded about the type of research that you want to do. It's great to have some labs you're super excited about and some projects you're super excited about. But there's things that can happen last minute that you don't expect, like different labs funding situations change and you can't join that lab. Or you find out that actually that PI and you really don't get along super well. So it's important to like know that there are so many different things that you could be excited about. There's not just one right answer for the lab that you're going to join. So it's okay to not know when you're starting where you're going to end up at the end of your first year. Also, before you agree to rotate in a lab, it is great to talk to faculty. It is great to talk to current students. So if you want to set up your first rotation before starting, like I would recommend Zooming with the faculty and like reaching out over email to current students. Like for example, my first lab that I rotated in, if I had reached out to current students, I would have known to not rotate there because the PI has no money, but they take rotation students anyway. So it's worth it to put yourself out there, take that uncomfortable step, to ask, and see whether
When would you do that? When after you get in, like over the summer?
after you get in. Over the summer, yeah. So different programs have different recommendations for when you set up your rotations. Some don't let you set up any until you arrive on campus. Others let you set them up like as soon as you accept the acceptance. And some, like my program, recommended that you do not set up any rotations until you arrive and listen to the faculty talks, which is great in theory, but everybody set them up already. So there's no chance in changing your first rotation so like that's something that is different for me than what like my program was recommending even. So I would highly recommend, if you can, setting at least your first rotation up over the summer, like June, July, but also still like reaching out to the faculty and to the current students before you actually set that up. So then another thing that I think is particularly relevant for coming straight from undergrad is that you're going to be in a cohort of people with a wide variety of experiences. There's going to be people who've done masters. There's going to be people who have been lab techs for several years. There's going to be people who've worked in industry for several years or have done postbacks. They're going to be at a different level from you, and that is okay. You got into there because you deserve to be there. The admissions committee recognized your potential, even though the whole admissions thing is crazy, you still deserve to be there. And you cannot expect yourself to have as much research experience as someone who's been doing this for 2 or 3 more years than you. And there's no point in comparing yourself to them. That's okay. You're going to catch up. And like your mentors are going to know and appreciate that you just came out of undergrad and maybe see you as even more impressive for that. And also, there's no point in comparing yourself to others because everyone has different goals. Like a PhD is so tailored, your research project is going to be so different than hopefully everybody else in your lab, but definitely other people in your cohort. So there's literally no, like, just try to get in the frame of mind of not comparing yourself to others because it would be comparing apples to oranges anyway. And then also something that I found super helpful is identifying, like making friends with older students, to have older student mentors who can really help talk through the things you're going through your first year because they remember what it's like. They know it's hard. They know that it's normal to feel completely overwhelmed with taking classes and doing lab rotations and making all these huge decisions and adjusting to a new place. It's overwhelming and that's okay. And there are people that are there to care about you and support you. So like take advantage of any of those resources that you can find. And then also the same thing goes for like other faculty mentors. Like I have somebody that I rotated with who I did not join her lab. Like she's an incredible mentor, like as a scientist, as a person, but she's not like my primary mentor. So just like find the people who you jive with, who you vibe with, and who can help you become the best version of yourself. And then lastly, like take time for yourself to avoid burnout, because this is a very cliche phrase, but a PhD is a marathon, not a sprint. So, if you want to take weekends for yourself, take weekends for yourself. If you want to take evenings for yourself, do that, because that will allow you to be more productive and happier in the long run. Okay, so I've talked for probably too long, and I'll pass it to Cameron now.
Hey everybody. Just as a for like background, I'm currently on a grad student retreat. So if you hear things in the background, I'm in like a makeshift conference room at the hotel right now. But I want to echo pretty much everything Jordan said was spot on, but I want to even extend the marathon, not a sprint notion to the application process, because for me, I really remember like you apply in the fall, interviews are like in the winter, and then you get to March and it goes by so fast. It's like you almost feel like your senior year is lost. And so I really want all of you, like before I even get into the whole like nitty gritty, to know that you need to pace yourself. It is a lot. It's a lot emotionally, it's a lot mentally. You're doing something that people don't even do in undergrad for a reason. Like it's an extra class of effort, of energy, and you're doing something that even your friends may not be doing. So it's taking you time away from them and things that re-energize you. So make sure that you're pouring into yourself, because when I got to March, I was completely burnt out. By the time I graduated, I think I slept for all of May. Like it was, if I would go back and do it different, I definitely would not put every like 110% the entire time. Like it's okay to do bits and pieces. And with that being said, I didn't know that I was going to apply to grad school, honestly, until about August, because lots of self-doubt, lots of, I don't know if I'm qualified enough. I don't know if I can compete with people coming from post-bac, people coming from masters, people that have publications. But honestly, like if it wasn't for Debbie Thurtle-Schmidt, like I probably would not even have applied. And she really like helped me see like all you can do is try, don't tell yourself no. And so in saying that, I want that to apply to even your list of schools. It's okay to think big. I applied to 12 schools, which is like kind of on the opposite end of what Jordan applied to, 6 to 12. And that was a lot, but I would also echo that I kind of regret not just applying to the schools that I really wanted to go to, because once I got to those final four, I was like, I don't care about this application and I still have to submit it because I asked for recommendations. So I would echo that you should definitely look at your list, look at the program's qualities, look at the research that's being done there, look at if the career outcome you think that jives with you right now is something that's being produced there. Also, schools have reputations, like that. Reddit is there. Reddit helped me a lot during my application process because there's a lot of unfiltered views and opinions that you can take with a grain of salt, but if there's a lot of them, some of it does ring true. And I didn't reach out once I had my list and I started my application. I didn't reach out to faculty as I applied. For me, it was just, it didn't feel necessarily genuine or natural for me to do so. So I just didn't. I just put the people I was interested in and let that be what it was. Additionally, I was applying for fellowships at the same time. I was applying for the NSF as a senior, and that was really helpful in helping me structure my personal statement. And I would really urge all of you to, and even from like helping on the admission side, the most important parts of your application are your personal statement and your recommendations. Like those two hold equal weight, and you want them to corroborate each other. Like you need them to tell a story and like paint a full picture of yourself. And so start early, because so much of the writing process is just getting to the good stuff. And if you can just keep writing and like getting all of the flub and like the messy ways of saying everything out, it'll, once you get to like October and then you're also in that midterms time, it makes it easier for you to like just kind of finish out what you've already started. um and so after you put your application together, um one thing is when you're applying to multiple schools, you want to tailor each application to the school, but it doesn't have to be like you write a whole new personal statement. For me, I basically, in my first paragraph in my intro, at the end of it, I put like two faculty that corresponded to like why I'm even doing this. Like, what is the purpose of me going to grad school? What am I interested in? Two faculty that I was like, they kind of, the research they do kind of aligns with that, telling my research story. And then at the end, looping in like my outreach and the things that I want to do with the school's offerings and what I would want to bring to their school even if I had the opportunity. Um and that allows them not only to see that like things that aren't just like on the website or like things that um like you can just look up, but it's also allowing them to see that you envision yourself there, and that helps them envision you there too, kind of in a different way. And so after like that December 1st deadline, which is like also around finals, that's like a really important time. Like after Thanksgiving, things will kind of go from 0 to 100. So I kind of just want to also put that out there, that that's going to be an intense time. So make sure, again, like you're taking care of yourself, make sure you're eating, drinking water, like taking showers, like all of that good stuff that you need to do to be mentally like neutral and at peace. And then after you submit, for me at least, anxiety got worse, because now it's like I have no control over the situation, because even getting to interviews, there's a level of rejection there because you don't even get the chance to like personify your application. And in a different way, it's like a lot of them want to get them out before Christmas, so then that's kind of like a point that you can kind of expect some of them, but some come after the new year because like they're on vacation. So um that kind of December to honestly sometimes February period, depending on the program, can be a very tumultuous time, because again, you'll have programs that you really want to go to, or you really wanted to see if it would be a good fit, and you won't necessarily get the chance to interview there. But like Jordan said, it is about fit. You want somewhere that wants you, and you want somewhere that's going to pour into you. And it's so important because you're going to be spending 5, 6 years in that program, in that city, in that community. And you don't want to be somewhere where you're only there for the science, because it's going to be miserable, because science is literally failure. So if you're constantly failing, and then on top of that, you're like not having a good support system or community, it's going to be really difficult. And then getting to the interview process, that was a very nerve-wracking experience for me, because I felt like in many ways, I was like, what if I don't match what they expected, or like all of this stuff of like just all the anxiety and the doubts and the things in your head that tells you like you can't really do it. But the best advice that I got was, you literally just have to show up as yourself. You did your science, you wrote your application, and they're just going to ask you questions. And one hack that I felt like really helped me calm my nerves was, I would always ask them how they were doing, and like ask them a question first, just to like neutralize the ground. Like, so it doesn't feel like I'm being pestered, but it's like, okay, I can ask you questions and it's fine. Um, and for my first few interviews, I would research all my interviewers, and I would look up their papers and their abstracts. And I would make like 3-page long Google Doc cheat sheets of all the people with like all the, like, I would make like 10 questions that I would ask them if time ran out. And what you'll find is you need to do that in the front end to get more comfortable with the interviewing process. But by the end, you're not looking at people, you're honestly just showing up ready to talk about your science, ask them questions, because there were many interviews that I got out easy because I just asked them a question about their work, and they went on a whole slideshow about what they do and their publications and what they're doing in the lab now. And sometimes you'll even get paired with people that may even have correlations to classes you're in, or people whose papers you've read in class. And that can be kind of intimidating, like being interviewed by biology titans in the field that are so respected. But they are also looking for their future colleagues, and they'll say that a lot in the interview process, is that they are here helping to choose the next generation of scientists. They're not necessarily here to um, make you feel down and like try to bully you into feeling bad about yourself. They genuinely want to know what you're curious about, what you think is worth pursuing, and they'll pour into that. So if you show your passion, it's gonna go well most of the time. There are people that are gonna be, not the best, but those, at least in my experience, were very few and far between, and you kind of move on from them because you have another interview right after that's probably gonna go better. And then after the interview process, I feel like that is, like Jordan said, like the worst period, because now it's like, now you've gotten to know the place, you've gotten to see the people, you've gotten to know them. Like, it feels like you're really, really attached to this idea of going to that program. But it's also like, just to reiterate, even after the interviews, you want to go to a place that wants to pour into you, and you want to go to a place that when you were there, you felt a great vibe. For me, I made my decision based off my gut of what school I was going to go to. And I kind of struggled with that for a minute, because I was like, well, I feel like I should make this logically. But every time I did the logic, my gut was like, you don't want to go there. And it's a hard thing to do, because it's like, it feels like a permanent decision. Like, in your career, this is going to be the place that you say, I trained here under this person, and it's going to feel like a really big thing. But ultimately, getting a PhD in and of itself is a huge accomplishment. So getting into a program is something worthy to be celebrated, and it's not something many people can say. And so it is very normal and very okay to feel disappointed if it's not your first choice. But if you take a step back and you look at your options and you realize that there's a program that you think could work, you can do that. And like, I would say go for it. But if you also are like, if say like you did the other applications that you necessarily didn't want to go to, and those were the options that you got, it's okay to say, actually, I'm going to try again a different year. Like, that's not like a bad thing. And there are people that have done that, where they got into places that they're like, actually, it's not a great fit for me, and it's okay to try again. and then go do a post back or do something else that fits more of like what you want to do in the next steps. It's okay, also normal. And so after you accept going into your first year, I personally, I was like, I need a summer. This is my last summer before I'm doing research for the rest of my life. So I didn't reach out for setting up rotations until August. And that ended up being, especially in my program, very similar to what Jordan was saying. They say like, oh, you can wait till you get on campus. And then I got on campus and people had all 3 rotations set up like into the spring. And I was like, okay, well, there's that. And the way that the Rockefeller curriculum is set up is that your rotations can be however long with whoever. You just email the dean's office to tell them where you're at, pretty much. And so I was in my first rotation from September to December, and I ended up joining that lab. And that's probably why it was so long, because I just didn't really want to leave. But in that process, that whole first semester, we're getting all the faculty lectures. And so you get to December and you're like, wait, I wish I knew this person so I could set up a rotation with them. But it's like December, and who knows, like, if you even have a spot left, because after you see everybody else did all 3, you do all 3, and so on and so forth. And so, at least for our program, I applied and was like the student rep committee representative for my class. And so we worked with the deans to condense the programming into September. So now rotations here won't start until October. And you get all of the faculty talks in September, which is a much better way for you to have all the information you need to make the choices that you want. Because at least here, each lab is like a department. So even though I only applied to umbrella programs, this one works a little bit different in the fact that because there were only 70 labs when I applied, now there's 72. Every lab is pretty much different. Like there's not much overlap. And if there is overlap, it's like within a specific person's project or specific postdocs project. And if that person leaves, then that overlap goes. So it was really important to me to find a home here that like the science was always going to be interesting, but I needed to find a mentor that cared about lab environment and lab culture and about my development and my growth. And that's what I personally prioritize, because once you're at an institution like this, all the science is good and pretty much everyone's reputable. So that doesn't necessarily need to be as heavy as a factor, in my opinion, for myself. So after doing that, going through rotations, you choose your lab. But yeah, just kind of reiterating, the application process itself is going to feel a lot shorter once you get to the end of it than it feels while you're in it. And so while you're in it, I just encourage you to like take a weekend and not do something, like just not focus on it. Like go wherever you need to go with your friends and just get away from the computer, because you can start ruminating on it and it can be all you think about, and the stress can build up slowly before you even realize you're like basically at your bandwidth. So
Yeah.
I really just want to stress that.
Thank you, Cam. And that's why I've asked Ridgely to be here today, but I want to make sure that Alexis and Mia get a chance to share their thoughts first before we go there. So Alexis, Mia, please, if you want to jump in. We do have a hard stop at 12.
Yeah, I'll try to be fast. I mean, I agree with everything Jordan and Cameron said. I think my main advice is definitely pace yourself. At least for me, it took a lot longer to put together my application materials than I thought it would, especially because I just ended up, getting a lot of feedback from, definitely lean on your professors at Davidson. Like Brian Thurlschmidt helps me so much with my personal statement, and also like thinking through what programs I wanted to apply to. I mean, they've all been through grad school, so they know how it works. But definitely pace yourself. I was pretty miserable the fall of my senior year, honestly. And I think this kind of echoes what both Jordan and Cameron said, is you want to pick programs that you think will be a good fit for you, both in terms of the science and the general community, the location of the school. And so I would err on the side of maybe not applying to too many schools. I applied to I think 9 or 10, which I honestly think was too much. I did not need to apply to that many. Um, Looking back, especially once I was in the interview process, I was interviewing at some schools and it was just exhausting. So I was like, why am I here? I don't want to go here. Like the research here isn't like super up my alley. I don't want to live in the city. Um, so definitely take a lot of time thinking about where you want to apply and why. And this will also help when you write your personal statements. It's really difficult to write a statement about why you want to go to school if you're just forcing it. Like you're making up some like kind of vague reason like, oh, because, they have this great caliber of research, but it's like vague and you could say about any top school. To make sure you have specific reasons, like name drop faculty members. You're like, I'm interested in working with XYZ, and you definitely don't have to stick to those people once you go to the school. And so that's my main application advice. As for interviews, yeah, they seem super stressful, but I thought they were actually fun. Like once you go, you realize it's not that bad. Everyone just wants to get to know you. So you should definitely be yourself. Definitely ask the faculty questions. They love talking about themselves. Like, don't underestimate that. If you ask them one question about their research, they will go on an hour-long tangent. And I think mostly what they want to see, like I personally didn't get grilled a lot, maybe a couple times. They want to see that you're interested in science and that you are excited and that you can thrive for 5 to 6 years in grad school and not get too burnt out because you are passionate about the work and about learning. And so even if didn't understand, like if you read a couple abstracts of the faculty member and you don't really understand it, like that's okay. Just go in with like an open mind and like I don't understand, like, oh, I don't understand this thing. Like, can you explain it to me? Ask follow-up questions. Just seem very engaged and wanting to learn. And I think that'll take you a very long way. Um, so if that means you have to practice like being able to ask questions on the fly, like that's something you can do with people. Because I think that's just a very important skill is you're in grad school because you're curious and you want to do research to discover new things. Um, so that's what you want to be displaying about yourself. And then I don't know if anyone's mentioned this yet, but I know that some people reach out to faculty members via email before they even apply or during their application process to be like, hey, I'm interested in your lab. Like, could we set up a Zoom to like talk about like your research or if you're taking students or about the program? Um, I personally did not do that because I applied to all umbrella programs where you could do rotations. So I wasn't super invested in any single lab. But I do know that people that did do that. Me personally, I was like, I do not have the bandwidth to do this. And it gives me anxiety to email professors, so I'm not doing it. I think for that, my advice is do what gives you less stress. If emailing faculty members ahead of time to get a vibe about the school or if they're taking students, or if you want to like, you think it'll like give you a leg up, then email them. But if it gives you so much anxiety because you have to now draft extra emails and then like set up a meeting with them that you have to prepare for, like don't do it.
Can I just add in on that one point?
Yeah.
For targeted doctoral programs, they have to do that. So
Yeah.
so that is a requirement if you are applying to a targeted doctoral program. But if you,
Yeah, this
to
is
your
just
point,
for umbrella, yeah.
yes, yeah, for umbrella, it's an option, but for targeted, you must. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely for the targeted, you should email people. Um, but same with the rotations, like once you get accepted, I personally did not have the bandwidth to reach out to set up my first rotation. For me was totally fine, but Stanford has like a million labs to choose from, so they don't particularly get full and stop taking rotation students, especially because we are fully funded. Um, and so it doesn't cost the labs extra money to take a grad student. We basically bring the money with us to the lab. So most PIs will tell you that you can rotate. Which is another factor is money, sadly, that people don't really talk about. But I do know plenty of people who were interested, who are not in fully funded programs, who are interested in a lab, even rotated, And then they were like, I love this lab, I want to join. And then the PI is like, actually, I do not have the money to fund you. And then, you know, after you thought you got into your dream program in this lab that you really want to join, they then reject you. So to think a little bit ahead of time, either applying to fellowships if you have the bandwidth for that, or just keeping in mind, will this program be able to financially support me in the way I'm looking for, is really important. Other than that, I think just going off of vibes is very important, like your gut feeling, which feels silly, but you just want to go somewhere where you're very happy. I think science is great everywhere. And yeah, like here, I knew I wanted to go to school in California. It's very California vibes. Like everything is very laid back. People are like so unserious. And so I really like that. But yeah, it just totally depends on what you're looking for. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Okay. So, my trajectory into grad school is a little bit unique in not the best way. I would not recommend taking my approach. I think it was Cam and Mia both said they applied to a ton of grad schools, and I did the same thing. I applied to 12, I think, and then ended up interviewing at like 10 of them. And so same situation, just senior year was just running around everywhere, super stressed out. But I think the biggest thing that I regret not doing was taking some time to really do some soul searching and figure out what exactly I wanted to get out of grad school, because I was someone who felt like I was interested in a million different types of research. I could see myself in molecular biology. I could see myself doing like macroecology. I just had a really hard time narrowing down what I wanted my focus to be. And so because of that, I mostly applied to rotation programs because I was like, oh, I'll figure it out once I get to grad school, which is not what you should do. You should figure that out before you apply. And something else that I think really influenced my decision, well, I guess I originally decided to go to Berkeley and spent a month in that rotation program and absolutely loved Berkeley. But the exact research that I wanted wasn't there. And what had happened is that I fell in love with the field of molecular ecology, doing an internship during undergrad, and spent the 2 years after I did that internship, basically trying to convince myself not to go to Montana State, because MSU doesn't have like the reputation that, you know, Stanford, Berkeley that I was at, a lot of these other big names had. And I let that really color my decision instead of making the PhD about me, because at the end of the day, like, you're going to school for your own education, for your own research interests, and you shouldn't let reputation or names scare you away from a lab or a program that might be really calling you. And then two, I think something else that was a little bit hard for me is that I felt like a complete outsider throughout the whole process. I was first gen college student, and kind of supported myself throughout all of undergrad and even through high school. And so I didn't really have a whole lot of like parental guidance or like people in my life to guide me through that process. And so because of that, I did lean really heavily on a lot of Davidson faculty. And that was like, I'm so grateful for Davidson for that. But something that I felt was lacking is that there's not really any kind of molecular ecology. Like, I didn't even know what the field was before I did my internship, which was at MSU in the lab that I'm currently in. And so I guess with all of that, I would just really recommend taking time to figure out not necessarily your specific research questions, but just like, what are the big topics and like big concepts that draw you, that you see yourself like wanting to contribute to, and being able to figure that out and talk about it and just get really excited and curious will guide your personal statement writing. It'll guide like where you apply. Yeah, that, I think that's really important. And then I was making notes about what people were saying too. I don't want to scare you away. Sorry, I'm trying to talk fast because I know we're running out of time, but I don't want to scare you. But I had a couple of like really hard interviews that I wasn't exactly expecting. I won't name names of schools, but one faculty member asked me to provide an example of a time that I made a mistake and then recovered and learned from it, and like how that influenced my trajectory going forward. So I started describing how I was doing a transformation and was using a restriction enzyme and missed an internal restriction site. So then I ended up shredding my plasmid and the gene, and it was just kind of like a very simple mistake. But then I was like, I learned how to do this other assembly technique that allowed the research to move forward. And it was also my first time in a lab as an undergrad. I thought that was like a perfect example. And the faculty member's response was, that was a huge oversight. I can't believe that your advisor let you do that. Like, how could you do something so stupid? And started just like hazing me for it. And it was super jarring. And I mean, in hindsight, I try to think about like what his motivation could have been for having that kind of a response. And I honestly think it was just to like test how thick of a skin I had, which I think is kind of like psychologically horrible to do during an interview for a potential new grad student. But what that ended up telling me is that I didn't want to go to an institution with faculty like that. So I kind of went through the rest of that interview week and is like, I don't care what happens. I'm just going to have a good time and I'm not going here. And then other notes that I made too, I applied to mostly rotation, like umbrella programs, but ended up directly admitting into a lab at MSU. I guess I feel like I want to elaborate on like a little bit more about how I made the jump from Berkeley to Montana State, because it was extremely stressful, but also goes to show that even if you find yourself in a place that you really don't feel like you can stick out for 5 to 6 years, it's not a final decision. Like you can always, it's your life. Like you can get yourself out of any situation. And I know like a lot of the reason why this process is so stressful is because you feel like you're making a life defining decision. That's what it felt like to me. But then I got to Berkeley, and like I said, I love Berkeley so much. I just felt so called to come to my current lab that I'm in now. Which is why I made the transition, but I felt so stuck and I didn't think that I could do it. I felt stupid for wanting to leave like such a fantastic institution where I had all the support in the world, for Montana State, which doesn't have the same reputation, in all honesty, doesn't have the same departmental support. The grad student body isn't nearly as close knit as Berkeley's is, but I have a ton of support like outside of my lab. I love my lab so much, and it's a pretty big lab, and so I feel like I have everything that I need, and it made more of a personalized decision in that way. I love my advisor. I have a lot of other support that isn't necessarily through like a structured department, and didn't end up having to do like rotations or anything like that. I just like knew it was the right choice for me. Yeah, I would love to elaborate about any more of that, but I know that I want to be conscientious of time. So
I appreciate that, Alexis. Maybe if I could ask our presenters if you felt comfortable dropping your email in the chat so that students could follow up with you, that would be great, if they wanted to hear more. But thank you, Alexis, for talking about that transition, because that is something that does happen and people don't really talk about. So if you find yourself in that position next year this time, reach out to Alexis. And I'm sure there are some lessons learned there about how to optimally transition. Ridgely, with our remaining few minutes, I did want to give the floor to you to talk about kind of
Sure.
how to
Sure.
manage
So
this.
this is going to be the quickest 5 minutes on stress and anxiety that you have ever heard. So I wanted to preface this with, I've heard, several of the guest speakers mention the word stress and anxiety. So I would love a show of hands, and this is including everybody, of how many of you have at any time in your life experienced stress or anxiety. So that's just about all of us. So I wanted to basically say, this is normal. It is normal to feel stress. It is normal to feel anxiety, especially at times of life and development when there's a transition, whether it be a job transition, a transition from school to the workforce. And with that being said, behind me, you can see I've got my handy surfboard. And one of the things we like to say is that life is like the waves in the ocean. It's going to constantly, through your life, be sending waves your way, whether it be applying for graduate school, moving to a new state, a new relationship. And so what we do in mental health and well-being is we want to teach you how to surf. So what is it that you can do to acknowledge and accept the experiences that you're going through? I know that Cameron shared and Jordan shared that applying for PhD programs, it's a process. There's anxiety up front about submitting the applications. There's anxiety afterwards when the applications are submitted, and am I going to get rejected? Am I going to get accepted? So one of the things that we do in the counseling center is that we help students walk through a lot of the emotions that they're feeling. We help them to identify the emotions they're feeling. We also help them to identify cognitions. I know at one point Jordan brought up the phrase, "I'm not good enough." So, how is it that we experience "I'm not good enough"? When we're applying for programs, when we get a response that maybe we weren't accepted, and how do we then move forward and realize that there are other experiences that we can have, and being flexible, malleable, open to happenstance. If there's something that I've really set my mind on and it doesn't happen, are we open to other experiences? And so working on flexibility and navigating happenstance. But also I wanted to touch on something that Cameron had said, that she felt like a lot of her senior year was lost. So I have had a lot of students in my office last spring that felt like they were losing experiences that they wanted to have their senior year with friends, navigating traditions at Davidson. So one of the things that we work on with students is, how do you also remain present? How do you make time to do your applications, to prepare for the future, but then also ground yourself in the present so you can enjoy your friendships, so you can enjoy your present experiences. And with that comes navigating a lot of guilt, because I know a lot of times we feel guilt when we're not working, when we're not preparing for things. So how do we find a balance between working on our future and also remaining present in our experiences with those around us? So I know we're short on time, so I just wanted to give a shout out. Make an appointment to come into the Counseling and Wellbeing Center. A lot of times students think that to come in there, you have to experience a trauma, or it has to be, something that is a high level of distress. Well, transitions can be a level of distress. And so we work a lot with students on navigating these experiences.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ridgely. With our remaining few minutes, we do have till 12 o'clock. Is there anyone that wants to ask a question of our panelists? Anna, go ahead.
Did you say Fana?
Yes.
Oh, hi, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to all share your experiences. I feel like I learned a whole lot and I really appreciate it. I wanted to ask, how did you approach the whole finding a PI or a mentor that you work with or that you go with? I find that process, it sounds hard to decide. So I wanted to hear how you decided to find a mentor.
I can take that because I feel like the hardest part, ironically, is you have to know what you need. And going in, like they'll say there's three different aspects. There's science, lab culture, and your mentor. And when you're working with a PI, you need to have a relationship where you feel like if you express an idea that's not in agreement with theirs, it's not going to be an ego death. Like you can express what you want to pursue and it not be like a big blowout, like conflict. And so when you go into spaces, in many ways, like when you're choosing a program, it's going to be a gut feeling because you're going to feel how people in the lab treat you, how you feel going to lab. I did one rotation where I literally would wake up at 7 a.m. I get back at like 8 p.m. and I was miserable. Like those things you have to pay attention while you're in them because that's going to be what your next 6 years looks like. And if you don't like that, then that's what you need to pay attention to. And then you learn from each one. You learn what you do like, you learn what you don't like, and then you learn what you can tolerate. And then you put all those together, and that's kind of how you make that decision.
All right. Awesome. Well, it is 12 o'clock, so I want to thank you, Jordan, for putting this program into motion. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Cam and Mia and Alexis, for taking time out of your busy doctoral programs and retreats and everything else. Thank you, Ridgely, for taking time from the Counseling Center. We really appreciate it. And students do take them up on their offer to reach out. They put all their emails in the chat, so hopefully you've grabbed those. If you still need them, just pop me an email and I'll make sure to share it with you. Thanks again. All right, take care. Bye.